Okay, welcome to Economically Speaking. I'm Manan,
And I'm Tanushka.
and in this episode, we'll be discussing anime and its effect on economies. Okay, so my first question to you would be, how did you get into anime?
A very funny story, and that is not very funny at all. But 2020 happened, coronavirus happened, I was way too vela, and yeah, I had unrestricted access to the internet.
Okay, so who got you into anime? Obviously, someone must have recommended it.
My
No?
mom's phone got me into anime. No
Ah.
one I just discovered Netflix, and in it there was this fairy tale anime. That was my first anime,
Okay.
and I'm still very in love with it.
Okay, so for me, how I got into anime was actually through my brother. So he wanted me to watch an anime with him, and he had to convince me so hard. He had to matlab, give me incentives like I'll take you out for ice cream if you just watch this with me. Because anime watching with friends is very bonding and is so fun. So being in COVID and being home, I was the only option he had. So he had to give me some incentives, and I eventually decided to watch anime and fell in love with it instantly. So at first I thought that it was something which is childish and which is something children would enjoy, and not something which adults or grown-ups who don't necessarily enjoy watching cartoons would like. So what is your take on that? Do you think anime is for children?
I think that idea is complete blasphemy, and anime is for everyone. There's something in it for everyone. If you like more, if there's a child who wants to watch anime, there's something for that child. Then if there is an adult person who would like to explore more serious themes, then there's something in anime for that also. It's not just cartoons per se.
Huh. So, do you think that being animated adds to the value of it? Or if the shows, if the same plot line, if the same characters, same voice actors were to perform in real time with real cameras and real action, don't you think it would do well?
I think, yeah, live actions have done very well, but the aspect of art, I feel like that adds the imagination, the vision of the creator. There are some things that you cannot replicate in real life, but then when it comes to art, designing, animation, you can put in things that one can only imagine.
And I feel like being animated, people are also able to relate more to it. Matlab, they can put themselves in those shoes. A character is basically a blank slate for anyone who's watching. So if I'm watching an anime and I see a character, his defining characteristics, his charisma, his stamina, or his way of talking might seem different to me than to some other person, because you reflect your own ideas in anime.
Because when it comes to movies, you see it as a different person altogether. Here you can relate yourself with the character.
Okay, so how popular do you think anime is in India?
I think it has been catching fire lately, and but it's still like a very cringe concept to some people who, like, even you thought that it was for children at the start. So you yourself would understand now.
A lot of Indians don't realize, but we have been watching anime since our childhoods. Everyone I know has seen Pokemon. It is one of the biggest franchise in the entire world. In India, Pokemon has earned billions of dollars of revenue, and people don't even realize that it's anime. So, do you think that it is because Indians don't care about it?
I think it's that they just don't realize what they have been watching until now is actually anime. Like, real story, I used to be friends with a person who was like, oh, you watch anime? That's so very cringe. But then he is also the person who used to collect Pokemon cards and then flex them at people. So,
Okay, so the hypocrisy is there.
yes.
And I feel like the trend is slowly moving towards embracing anime. Like more and more
It's
people.
becoming cooler now.
where it's becoming cooler. People wear anime merch
Hmm.
outside of their home. Matlab in college, even in winters, you see so many different anime collections, and it is something which people are passionate about. And whenever there is passion, there is always money to be made. So we can talk about merchandising. So why do you think people purchase merchandise for anime they like?
Because anime at this point it has also become a sort of identity to the people, right? And they would want other people to know, oh, this is the stuff that I'm into. That's why merch exists. And then it also helps you find people, like-minded people who
Yeah,
like
the main thing, yeah,
yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, finding like minded people. So, there are so many different communities for anime, and that is the biggest selling point for me. So, whenever you get into an anime, you have so many people to discuss it with.
Yes.
There are Discord servers, Reddit servers, subreddits, Twitter accounts, and Facebook pages. Matlab, any social media platform, you'll find anime feeds there.
Speaking of now that it's becoming more popular, even a Comic Con is taking place, right? Like
In
in
Delhi
December.
itself, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to it.
So it is catching fire. Matlab, anime is doing so many different things. Okay, so let's talk about the effect of anime on the economy as a whole. So, do you think the people in Japan, the workers, the animators, they're benefiting from it?
That is a very controversial topic now because not controversial per se,
But difficult.
yeah, very
It's
hard to say.
complicated.
It is complicated. With the popularization of anime, more and more animators are finding jobs now. But then again, there's also quote unquote shortage of those animators because now the studios, there's a high, it is very popular culture for studios to outsource people for animating their shows.
There is such a high demand for quality episodes
Right.
that the animators just can't keep up.
They cannot keep up.
So there are so many whistleblowers every day. Whenever you log on to Twitter, or formerly Twitter known as X, that there are literally hundreds of animators quitting because they just can't handle the work environment. And a large part of it is because of Japan's toxic work culture. But even in other countries, animators have to do everything by themselves. It's not something which they can put onto other people or do something about. They have to make the episode, and there's nothing else they can do.
The only saving grace is the fact that you can hire more and more people for the episode, but then again, the more people, too many chefs spoil the broth. And that's when the culture of meeting deadlines also results in low quality episodes coming out more and
Makes
more.
sense.
What are your thoughts on the idea of developing an Indian adaptation of animated content to harness its immense popularity among our youth? By doing so, we can showcase its potential as a viable career path and a significant source of revenue for the animation industry. Currently, India lacks a robust animation sector, but with our large youth population, we have the opportunity to build a thriving industry that aligns with their interests and aspirations.
I think there's been talk of this Indian animation studio coming up with a new anime for the Indian audience, right?
Yes, that's very exciting. I'm not really following it too much, but I'm hoping that Indians are very talented people. Matlab, even in Japan, a large number of workforce have Indian origin because Indians prefer to go to that country to enjoy the better work-life balance, and it is something which India is facing. So making anime in India is definitely something which could benefit a lot of people. But we also have to realize that making anime is damn expensive. So, new production studios who are going to take that risk will have to suffer the consequences as well. Because not every anime is successful, but every anime is expensive to make.
About that particular fact I'm remembering, the very first, the god of anime, we call him Osamu Tezuka. Osamu Tezuka. So there's something called Tezuka's curse in the animation industry. And basically, Osamu Tezuka, he came up with the first anime, we can say, which was Astro Boy. And for that, he did not have any funds.
Okay.
So initially, the sponsors, they offered him a very low amount of money per episode. I think it was around 500,000 yen. That is not enough for a person to make 25-minute episode of an anime, especially in that time where everything had to be done by hand.
Yeah.
Right? So, but he accepted that offer, and now people say that this is the Tezuka's curse because him accepting that offer resulted in it set a precedent for future animators, studios, producers to also pay their workers less. Like that is the myth behind this. But then again, like if you think about that fact, it also takes away the responsibility from modern producers. They can be like, oh, he did it at the time in this much money, so I don't need to pay this.
And looking from a purely business point of view and from a financial point of view, if you have a steady supply of workforce, you have upcoming talented people who are passionate about anime and want to get into designing, and they are ready to work for minimum wage, and they are producing quality content. So, as a business owner, as the owner of a production company, I would want those people to work for me endless hours, countless hours. So, do you think there should be some regulation for this?
Definitely, but then again, since it is majorly a Japanese production, so Japan's work-life balance, as you have said already, is very. It is in their culture to overwork themselves.
It is expected.
Yeah, it is very expected.
Another problem which anime is facing recently is piracy. So in India, I personally am going to admit that I have never paid a single penny to watch anime. And this is a problem for animes because they are making the anime to make money. And money is the thing which makes the companies work so hard. So, do you think that they should have strict guidelines and strict takedowns of those sites? Or do you think piracy is actually helpful in promoting anime? Because if I didn't get into anime through a pirated website, I wouldn't have purchased the merch for Naruto. I wouldn't have gone to Comic Con, or I wouldn't be interested in buying sushi or any other different benefit which we have.
I agree with the latter half of what you said because it does. It is a very personally. I would not want to pay for my anime because there is a lot for you to consume. You can't be, especially for Indian audience where the main audiences are teenagers or kids who don't have financial independence for themselves. We cannot expect them to pay a lot of money into the media and entertainment they consume. But then again, after they get into a certain anime, a lot of the money goes into the money that these production houses lose due to piracy. They also gain from the advertisement and the merch and the events and everything like that.
Wait, there are a lot of things which can get you hooked.
Exactly.
So, yeah, if you get a glimpse of an episode in like a YouTube video, which is definitely illegal and can be taken down, but it is something which can get you interested in that anime, and maybe next weekend you'll be watching a movie in a movie theater or buying a ticket to Japan and going to visit that place. Okay, so now that I've mentioned it, tourism to Japan is also very important for anime because.
Can we go back to what you said before this? Like, I think the regulations part that the movies, the sites should be taken down. I would say that those sites, yeah, keep cleaning them once in a while, but regulation can be put more on the licensing of the rights to the characters. So that way, the official merch can be sold more, and the unofficial merch, though it is very accessible to people, but if we're talking about the money leaking, so the licensing can be taken a little more seriously. and that could be a better source of revenue for those production
Okay.
houses.
And what about tourism?
Tourism. Definitely, since I started watching anime, it is my one big wish to go to Japan.
Everyone's.
Everyone's. And if I had the money, I would in a heartbeat. And the top things on my list and on every anime fan's list would be to visit all of those famous places featured in their favorite animes like Shibuya and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Of course.
Number one on my list.
The Tokyo is also something which
Yes.
everyone wants to go to. Every single anime features Tokyo at least once because it's the biggest city. And I feel like sometimes people confuse Japan with Tokyo. Japan has so many different things to offer than just the major metropolitan areas.
Right.
It is a country which is having vast open plains as well and some beautiful sceneries. So tourism in Japan is definitely heavily influenced by anime because a lot of foreign nationals are going there. It is the reality.
Right. However, I would say as much as the that tourism part has become a big boom for the Japanese economy, it has also become a nuisance for the locals living there. Right. So if you've heard of the recent fact that they closed up Mount Fuji for because all of the tourists would stay and stop at roads and cause like
Havoc and
yeah.
creates traffic jams and
Yes.
safety hazards.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And even some influencers from United States, there was someone named KD, and he decided to spend 0 rupees, 0 yen in Japan and travel the entire country. So he was basically shoplifting and not paying the bus fares. So it is also a public nuisance as well. I totally agree with you.
Right.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the fact that, despite significant piracy in the book industry, many still manage to make profits? Should we aim to ban piracy entirely, regulate it more strictly, or let it continue as it might serve as a marketing and advertising strategy?
Okay, so my take on piracy in this case would be that it is not something which can be ignored. Because if ignored, it can be something which gets out of hand. Because even right now, apart from piracy, there are also leaks. So there will be a manga leak, matlab the character has been killed in the 6 months from now,
I'm
and you
still
already
mad
know.
about the spoilers I've gotten from those leaks.
So it is also ruining the experience for viewers. So piracy and leaks is something which definitely needs to be cracked down on. The other industries like the books industries or the music industry is doing fine without piracy because they have other alternate sources of revenue. But anime does heavily rely on people watching it because it is a show, and the main source of income should come from watching it and consuming the content rather than relying on the merchandise part of it.
Have you noticed how movies are heavily pirated in India, with numerous sites allowing people to download them? Given the emergence of alternate distribution channels, do you think exploring similar avenues for distribution of animated content could be a viable solution?
Anime distribution has definitely improved so much more over the years. So 10 years back, if you wanted to watch anime, you would have to go to Crunchyroll. There was no different other platform which you could access. But now you have Netflix, you have Prime Video, and Netflix is doing its own shows now. You must have anyone who is passionate about anime must know about Arcane, and it is an anime which is produced by Netflix itself. They are paying the cost, they are hiring the editors, and they are making sure that the quality is good and is available to the Netflix users and give them the best possible version of the show they can.
In what we talked about, like centralizing the distribution of the anime, I think even during the start of the boom of the anime industry, it was uh, it was mostly due to international trade of import and export of the anime that it got spread to the rest of the world, starting with America. and it I feel like it was way more centralized at that time because the licenses, the rights were with the original production house, and those were imported directly. There were no middlemen like Netflix or Prime or anything like that. So they could profit more from their distribution rather than now that we have all of these OTT platforms and stuff. But yes, it has made it more accessible to the people, thus generating more revenue in the overall sense.
Don't you think that piracy might be a strategic factor in the widespread popularity of animated content? It's possible that it wouldn't have achieved such a massive following if piracy didn't exist, especially considering the many individuals who cannot afford to access it through legal platforms.
I'd like to say I'm also one of the people who cannot afford anime. So
Yeah, even though I may have money, it's not for anime. I'm sorry, I'll just get something to eat.
well, पहले पेट पूजा कर.
Okay, so yeah, people don't give anime a priority in India, that's true. But that does not mean we'll allow piracy to take place. That doesn't mean that the companies should have to suffer losses. And it is definitely a trade off. If companies were to crack down on piracy, there would be some backlash as well from fans who are not able to enjoy their main source of entertainment. But it would also incentivize them to purchase manga or to purchase rental anime disc series or some online platform. So there's a trade off, but we can't just accept privacy as a whole because it is a house of cards. The company has to make money, and in the end, if the company isn't able to do that, then we'll lose anime in of itself. So you won't be able to pirate it anymore. So ensuring that there is a sustainable business model is also important.
Another aspect that we can look at it from is the fact that anime is also art, and if you were say an artist, then you would not want other people to steal your art, or like you would want to be paid for your art that is being consumed. In that sense also, if one is able to financially afford, is in a place to be able to contribute more financially to the animation industry, then they definitely should, considering the ethical aspects of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Don't you think that piracy might be a strategic factor in the widespread popularity of animated content? It's possible that it wouldn't have achieved such a massive following if piracy didn't exist, especially considering the many individuals who cannot afford to access it through legal platforms.
Guys, let's talk about what is the psychological impact of anime on youth and how does it influence their identity formation. Like we can see in youth, they are doing their formation like hairstyle and their way of
Yeah, anime
their way
has.
of dressing is very influenced by anime. So how do you see that?
Having someone you can relate to from a show just goes to show you how engaging anime can be and how it engages a person from inside, from their mind, and how they can get attached so much to a character that they are basically idolizing them. So their influence, their behavior will definitely be influenced by them.
Agreed. Like, and the about the identity part, like, my mother is very mad at me because I found my identity around anime as well, and every time I leave the house dressed the way I want, inspired by anime, she says, "You look like a homeless person, a hobo, and
Okay.
टपोरी की तरह बन के घर से बाहर मत निकलो." But so yeah, the older generations are probably not happy about this fact, but what they also overlook is how anime has also promoted empathy among the youth as well, like how we can have characters we relate to and that we can understand, and it has created that community as well that you can be a part of. And since it is also a look down upon interest, having that community is very important for, you know.
And in this generation, me included, sometimes we feel lost and we don't necessarily know what we are passionate about and what we should discuss and what our future holds for us. But having some interest, and I'm not saying that interest has to be something like anime, it can be anything like any sport or any other interest you may have, like art and craft. But I put anime on that same level. That if you are passionate about a sport, like you enjoy football, or you are passionate about art and craft, you like painting, you are passionate about anime, you like watching anime and discussing it. I put those things in the same category, and it is a hobby for those people.
And additionally, speaking of the fact, like even the hobbies that you are interested in other than anime, there exist so many different. It is a huge, very vast genre. So there are many educational anime that you can watch that interest you. There's anime about cooking, about basketball, about volleyball, about
Football.
bikes, about cars, about everything. So it is educational as well in that aspect. I really love that fact.
Yeah.
A lot of animes that you see, at least the ones that I've seen, example being Naruto, they focus on characters that start from a very from a very desperate situation where they have nobody to look after them. They're all on their own. They have no resources to like even have a decent life or lack confidence. And then they have this huge amount of transformation as a character that even being the weakest person in the room, with the dedication that they show, they turn out to be the best. So, which shows that they weren't the best earlier, but they are now, given the hard work that they put in. Do you think this storyline that is followed for the main characters of a lot of animes that you can see, does that influence you on a personal level and how?
Yeah. So, from a personal point of view, watching animes like this from where a person from a very unfortunate circumstances, unfortunate beginnings, like maybe he's an orphan, or maybe he doesn't have any skills, like in a world of magic, he doesn't know what magic is, and he rises from that situation, overcomes obstacles, and does what he's supposed to do, regardless of any problems he may have. It is an inspiring story for anyone, regardless of who you are. You have to see that.
Yeah, see, a lot of us, every one of us has our own struggles that we all deal with on a daily basis. And looking at this character that you can empathize with, relate with on a personal level, or like other characters that you might relate with your own friends or your family, then you see that okay, this character is in such dire circumstances and they've gotten out of it, and it makes sense how they did it. So it will make sense if I can do it too.
You get to experience the journey with them.
Yeah,
You get to see how they were in the beginning, how they were in the process of it, and
that
how they
is
were at the end of it.
that's something I marvel at every time I finish an anime. Like within these short episodes, the journey that the character goes through is such, and it's such a transformative journey, definitely. And there is also something very interesting that I came across, and it is the surprising link between anime and chocolates. Because at the very start of the animation industry in Japan, there was a huge competition in the chocolate industry where companies were rivaling each other to get, you know, the biggest share of the market audience of the market, right?
And we haven't even touched upon the topic of manga, which is
Yeah.
half of what anime is actually. So we'll also be discussing that in a future episode. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.